All right, so last video for the week, right? Again, right? I feel like these two plays that we have seen up to now, right? Endgame and Waiting for Godot, are two of the more essential ones, right? To sort of get into and sort of understand sort of what we're dealing with when it comes to the existential and the absurd. But for projects, right? I want to talk about two things. One, what would make a good project, and two, what might not make a good project, right? It is going to be, of course, up to you to decide sort of how you want to do this project slash paper. If you are more of a paper person, great, fantastic, right? Take that and run with it, right? If you are more of a project person, there are going to be things that are going to work better and not work so well. So let's talk about things that work well for topics, for papers, for things of that nature, right? When it comes to projects, right? If you are working with yourself, or if you have talked to me already about wanting to work with somebody else on a project for your final, thing, right? Keep in mind, right? You are going to both, and I really would rather you not work with more than two people. I'd rather not more than two people work in one group, right? That's kind of what I mean to say. You're both still responsible for what would be considered a full-length project, right? And so that means that if you present a project together, it's going to be double the length, at least double the length of another, right, project. Now, how will you turn that in, right? Number one, if you're working with somebody else, you both do need to turn in the same project, right? You're both turning it in. That way, even though, yes, is it both the same exact video? Is it the same exact notes? It probably will be, but I do need to see it on both of your assignment pages, right? That both of you need to turn that in. So make sure that gets done. What makes up a good project, though, when it comes to a project, and that could be, a commented PowerPoint, a vlog of some sort, a blog with an audio recording, right? Is perfectly fine. What sorts of things make up good projects? There, things that require a little bit more visual media, right? If you're talking through specifically a show, if you're talking specifically through one of the plays that you want to talk about more, in depth, or you found another play or another, show or a movie or a game that you really think you can present, right? A good visual media. Then a project is perfect for that, right? Because with a paper, it's harder to present those images, right? Well, and so projects, right? Talking about different aspects of games, movies that you feel to be absurd, can be backed up with audio, can be backed up with some pointers to video, right? Again, let's not violate too much copyright law, but that I think makes up good projects, right? Now, what can you do with those projects? I mean, sure, it's easy to say, oh yeah, there's a thing that I want to do and it's got visual media, etc., etc. But how do we make sure to relate it back to the absurd, to the existential, to at least one of the other works that we've looked at, right, in this semester? That's a little more complicated, right? If you're going to present something that has a visual angle to it, it still has to connect back to aspects of the absurd, aspects of the existential. Why somebody you can look at from, right, one of these two perspectives. Why a setting or a scenario is more absurd, is more existential, really leans into this idea of a Sisyphus, right? If you're presenting something like a Groundhog's Day and how it's the same task over and over again, right? I think that is a great project, right? That you can talk about. But why is it, right? Why does it represent, right? Sisyphus, aside from the very basic notion of, right, the rolling the ball up the hill just to have it come back down and start over again. We know that already about Groundhog's Day. So what else, right, can we talk about that turns it into something that we can really make commentary on when it comes to the existential or the absurd? So, for papers, you're probably going to be looking at something a little different, right? You're going to be looking at something where you're going to be pulling things more out of text or more out of your own life, right? And again, with papers, the struggle is getting that right balance, right? You don't want a paper that is 20 pages long, but you also don't want something that you're done writing in 5 pages and now you've got to figure out how to get to another 5, right? I am interested in equality paper. And so what I don't want is I don't want a lot of, I'm saying the same things over and over again, or I am trying to fill it in with something that doesn't fit right within the topic, right? The other, of course, extreme is you've got too much to say and you've got too many aspects of your life that you're trying to fit into one paper and none of them really get treated very well, right? Focus on specific topics. Remember, this semester has been all about things like responsibility, all about the unexpected and the way that, we don't expect things or we can't explain things or we can't figure out how to make the world make sense, right? That we've talked about that a lot. A lot of that should go into, right, paper or project, right? So what does not make a good project or paper? What does not make a good project or paper is simply saying, here's a day in my life and why it's absurd. Here's a day in my life that's why it's existential, right? It needs to go further than that, right? Other things that are not good topics are books that you just love and that you're trying to force into a category, right? Make sure before you start this project that you understand how the thing that you love, and there are lots of things that you love that I'm sure would make great topics for projects, for papers, but that don't fit this particular category. Remember, not everything fits into the existential and the absurd. We've seen how it fits a lot of what we do. Absolutely, right? There's a ton of things that we can do that bring it into, our own space and that allow us to really experience it personally, but not everything, right? Talking about the fact that, I pack the same lunch every day, I pack the same things to come to school every day, I do the same routine every day. Is that necessarily enough to make a paper or a project about how I feel like Sisyphus? I don't know, right? If you start the project and you realize I have an interesting angle, or this has made me think differently, or this has made me reflect differently, and you really can tie it in, great. But just simply saying, as a student I have the same schedule all the time and it's just terrible. I do need more than that, right? So I will want you to work a little bit harder than just simply saying everyday life, Sartre, Camus, I'm existential, all right? You need something a little bit more than that, right? And so work to make that happen, right? If you've got questions, let me know, right? Again, this whole project is meant to allow you to explore these topics in a way that is meaningful for you. So make sure that your paper, your project, whatever you are doing is meaningful to you. Don't try cramming things into the wrong space, right? Work on creating something that is meaningful to you, that also fits the subject of the class. Make sure that you understand when you are presenting the reasons why things, fit in, that you've got the right citations, that you know the right way to talk about existential and the absurd, right? This should be something that you feel confident presenting, right? Even though we've just sort of leaned into this now in this semester, there is enough that we've talked about right now that you should feel comfortable and confident presenting some ideas that are fairly independently, perceived, right? And if you aren't sure about that, please let me know. Let's talk about that, right? So, good luck. I'm looking forward to seeing these projects and these proposals.